Hello, fight fans, and welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. My guest is Decky Macaleenan, a professional MMA athlete who competed last night on Cagewarriors 120 against Kieran Lister. Decky, thank you so much for joining us from your hotel room, my brother.
Thanks for having me back. Thank you.
No, man, I'm grateful. Thank you. Are you injured or anything since your fight?
No, you don't get injured from human blankets.
Okay, we can talk a little bit about that when we go through, my brother. Decky, if we can talk a bit about your game plan, what you knew about Kieran Lister before going into the fight, and what sort of game plan did you have to deal with Kieran?
Yeah, coming into the fight, we knew Kieran was solid on round. We knew he'd black belt in jiu-jitsu, was a decent striker and a good wrestler. So our game plan was more just try first round, keep the feet in the ground, use the hands a little bit, set everything up with the hands, start to get him panic wrestling a wee bit, and defend the takedown and put him away. But there was a few, as I said before, there was a few mistakes that he would make coming in and out of clinches that unfortunately I only exposed once, and nearly got the finish, but just didn't. He managed, he was tough and he was durable, and he managed to survive the round then. So
for sure, brother. And if we can talk a bit about the fight itself, if you can talk us through play by play, you know, how the fight went and how you thought you were doing each round.
Yeah, we'll come out the start of the first round. He came out through. He's got a good left body kick, which is good for being a southpaw myself. It's a good weapon against orthodox fighters because you can hit the liver with it. But with me switching from left to right, from orthodox and to southpaw, it takes away the danger of it a little bit. And the plan was as soon as that kick comes, just return the right hand straight away. And after that first shot, I could see in his eyes that hurt him. And then after that was a stiff jab, which I changed back to southpaw and hit him a stiff jab. And you could start to see the change in his face, that it was good. The striking wasn't going to be lasting for too much longer. So I took my foot off the pedal a little bit to let him try and get his confidence back. He threw a couple of kicks, and then I sort of upped the pace again, came back in, landed a couple of shots, and then we clinched up. Used a tie clinch a good bit, and ended up on the mat. He was good. Now, don't get me wrong, he was very good on the mat, very heavy, and was able to control the position the first round. I think I'd done enough with the damage done in the feet to pick up to win the first round, although the later half of that round, he managed to get top position on the ground, but he didn't do much with it.
Okay, so the first round you thought you'd done enough to kind of secure that, and then sorry, say that again.
It just nicked the first round, yeah.
So, and then moving on to the second round, if we can go through that.
Second round, yeah, it was the same. I came out, started to let the hands go, and not too long into the round, Kieran shot. I think I actually got a nice double leg, which landed in full guard. And as I said, joking about the human blanket, we got stood up because he just lay in my guard, didn't want to pass, didn't want to do anything, just wanted to hold me there. So on the break, whenever we got stood up, then I sort of let the hands go again and caught him with a lovely left hand, which sat him down. And that's where you have to give him credit for, because he managed to survive. I made a couple of silly mistakes trying to get the finish, which allowed him to survive. But not mistakes, just went for the wrong thing at the wrong time. And he managed to survive the second round. Scoring it, I think what got us the split decision draw was someone has scored at a 10-8 round. I think the last judge gave the first and the third round to Kieran and give a 10-8 in the second. That's the only way I can think. That's the only way I'm judging. That's the only way I can get that score from it. So in my eyes, it was a clear-cut round for me, if not a 10-8 round, like definitely.
Sure. And then moving on to the next round.
I've only watched the fight back once myself. I know Kieran did have a decent bit of control in the third round. I think that is the one round that he actually did win because somehow in one of the exchanges he managed to get my back and stalled out on my back for a good minute and a half. So as I said, that would have won him that round just with the dominant position. Like, I know it was a dominant position. There was nothing done from it, but it still was a good position for him to get the points to win the round. So in my eyes, the first round could have went, like, we'll be brutally honest, the first round could have went either way, depending on what your judges are looking for. Some look for control, some look for damage. I was the one doing the damage on the bottom. I was the one hurting it without. Like, he was in my guard covering up not to get hit. You know, so that's, in theory, in a fight, if you're on your back, you should be losing. But it's a different story when you're in my guard and I'm hitting the top of your head with elbows. So the first round could have went either way. Second round, 100% all me. Maybe a 10-8 in some people's eyes because the fight was near stopped. And the third round was a clear round for Kieran and with the positional control.
And before the MC announced the result, where did you think the decision was going to go?
To be honest, I don't know. It was one of the ones where I've done a couple of interviews last week. I'm not too sure if it was you I was talking to, saying that when you leave it in the judge's hands, you've made a mistake. Like, you've fucked up. You know, like, you can't let it, because now you're just waiting, as we talked about, for someone's opinion, and your opinion could be 100% different than mine. You're just hoping for the best, that someone thinks the same as yourself.
And you mentioned that he was wanting to keep you on the ground. Is that because he felt he was more dominant there, or he wasn't as competent as you stood up?
He could survive there. That's what the thing. He wasn't taking damage. Whenever he passed the to half guard, he buried his head beside mine and just held on. Like, at one stage, I let go of him and looked at Mark Goddard, the referee, and says, like, he's doing nothing. He's not even moving. And in the time that I had the conversation with Mark, Kieran hadn't even lifted his head. I didn't have my hands on him. He didn't try to pass me. He was just holding on. Like, that's the third round. We were talking. Kieran's coaches were telling him what to do, and I was telling him what to do as well. I was telling him, "Joe, come on, Kieran, squeeze me here, hold me. You know that the only way you can survive is holding on to me. You know, there's nothing." I think, and don't get me wrong, he's a very good grappler, but I think it was more a case of survival. It wasn't a case of him taking me down, because that's where he had a clear-cut advantage, that he could punish me and beat me. I think that's where he could stay safe.
So during the fight, there was once or twice when you actually spoke to Kieran, is that right?
Yeah.
And did he exchange anything back with you?
No.
I mean, is that something that you normally do in fights or not? Or
sometimes depends what's happening in the fight. Like, I was just trying to give him that wee bit of encouragement to do something.
Although it's early days, you know, is this something that you'd like to replay again, or are you looking to move on to someone else?
To be honest, at this stage of our career, a rematch doesn't do any of us any favors, really. Like, if it was for a title eliminator or a title fight, yes, if the two of us go and put a decent win, well, if Kieran goes and puts a win streak together and I get back and get another win or two, then I'm in title contention. I think Kieran is coming off a loss. I'm coming off 2 wins and a draw. Kieran's coming off a win, a loss, and a draw now. So I think I'm still that bit ahead of him, that a rematch for me with Kieran doesn't really do much. The same as a rematch for him isn't, like, you know, it doesn't do him any justice either. So unless it's a big fight for us, there's no point really the rematch happening.
Decky, thank you so much for taking the time out, especially after fighting last night and you're still in your hotel room. You haven't even gone home, and hopefully I look forward to speaking to you soon, my brother.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me here.